Hello and welcome to the Phil and Simon Show number 42 during the COVID-19 crisis. My name is Simon Minty.
And my name is Phil Friend.
Again, we are doing a slightly shorter show, lots of guests. This week, we're thrilled to have Jeff Adams Spink back to talk us about news. We've got Baroness Jane Campbell, who talks about her self-isolation. And we've got comedian Tanya Lee Davis, who may be quite rude and racy, as she normally is. Phil.
Yes, good morning, Jeff, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you, Phil. I hope you're both well too.
Yeah, very good. It's good to have you back. So tell us what's been kind of going across your desk over the last few days. Where are we going to start?
Well, rather like last week, we start with disabled people very concerned about an eventual denial of care in the event of resources in hospitals becoming scarce, this time from the USA. This is reported by the Daily Beast, who say that advocates for people with intellectual disabilities are absolutely outraged that states may deny life-saving treatment to those with cognitive issues when hospitals get overwhelmed. Several groups have apparently already made complaints to the US Department of Health and Human Services, saying that vague plans in states like Washington and Alabama will open the door to discrimination. And, you know, some of these states, it has to be said, they are not exactly on the same page as we are in terms of disability equality. Alabama's state plan, for example, talks about persons with severe mental retardation and advanced dementia not being the first in the queue when it comes to handing out ventilators. So again, what we're looking at is people whose lives are valuable to them and their families suddenly being triaged by a medical system that says, oh, you're a disabled person of some sort, either physically or intellectually challenged or whatever it happens to be, and therefore your life isn't as important.
Jeff, this is sort of a development of the last week when we talked about the National Institute for Clinical Excellence and their levels of frailty. You and I both work for the BBC, so just sort of some balance. And I don't want to even say this myself. Is there a clinical reason for this? Is it true that some people with certain conditions won't respond to a respirator, whereas another person might benefit from it?
Not that I've come across. No, I think it's grounded in that medical view of life that a young man in his prime, 30 years old, completely physically fit, able-bodied, as we used to say, is perhaps more deserving or will contribute more to the economy over the next 20 to 30 years than somebody who's 58, to take my own case, and maybe with multiple health conditions, including asthma and perhaps cerebral palsy or whatever it happens to be. No, I don't think there's a clinical reason for denying this. I think it's just that old-fashioned view of disability as people who are slightly broken or defective.
But is there a couple of slight different issues for us, from us to the US? One is, of course, that the US is a private healthcare system in the main. And it seems as if state by state, they're making their own rules kind of thing. So that's one issue. But thinking about the idea of balance, if you've got a massive demand for something, but you've only got a certain amount of it, you've got to make some decisions about who isn't going to get it, haven't you? So now I don't want to be the one that doesn't get it, but I kind of wonder what other criteria you could ever use that would somehow be fairer. Do you know what I mean? Because I do take your point, Jeff, totally, that disabled people are always being seen as not having quality of life, and therefore it won't be a pain to end it. But what's your thinking? I mean, is there a better way of doing this?
I mean, you know, any way that you do it, the medic in charge of doing that triage is playing God effectively. But, you know, you don't have to do it based on somebody's level of disability. You could, for example, do it on postcode, or you could do it on who got there first, or, you know, you could start from A and you could go from A and finish at Z, you know, given that my name begins with an A. I'd favour an alphabetical system, I think.
Simon would outlive both
yeah.
of us if that were the case, because he's an M. I'm an F.
But Phil, I think you're right. You know, in the USA, you've got 50 states. Here, you've got the 4 nations, and they've all got devolved health responsibilities, and they're all dealing with the coronavirus slightly differently. But imagine if instead of having England, Wales, Scotland, and Northern Ireland, you've got actually 50 of them, all with slightly differing attitudes and policies on healthcare. It must be, at a federal level, a nightmare to coordinate.
To go to your first point, Jeff, and we know that doctors already do play God. Sometimes they have to make these decisions already. But this is sort of formalizing it, and that feels really, really awkward and uncomfortable. There's an outfit in Berkeley, DREDF, they're called Disability Rights Education and Defence Fund. They've been around for a long, long time, and they produced a little fact sheet for disabled people that gives them their rights in terms of healthcare. And they wrote to me and said, how do we get this in the UK? And as Phil said, it's slightly different in terms of system, but I linked them up with DRUC, Disability Rights UK, EHRC, the Equality and Human Rights Commission, and Research Institute for Disabled Consumers. Because, you know, if that's something over here, you want to know what your rights are. And when you're right in that crisis moment, that's terribly awkward. And we do hand over power to medical staff. To have a little bit of knowledge is really helpful.
I think the other thing is that when we compare ourselves in terms of, say, medical equipment like respirators to mainland Europe, Germany in particular, we are way, way, way behind the number that we need. So in one sense, part of this issue is made worse for the doctors because we haven't got enough respirators to start with. Do you know what I mean? And this recent development with Mercedes-AMG developing a slightly different way of providing this kind of kit might make a difference. But so a healthcare service that's struggling in the first place is going to have to make some even more draconian decisions, isn't it, than one that's pretty well funded and got plenty of kit.
I think it is. And actually, while you mentioned the Mercedes-AMG story, interestingly, one of my care staff rejoined my team. She was working at Terminal 5 running the Dixon's electronics store there. And of course, that's closed.
I bumped into her, didn't I?
You did, the lovely Anya. And when she came to help me at the weekend, she wasn't aware that I was a CPAP user. CPAP being the breathing apparatus that you use for sleep apnea, which I think your dad also uses, Simon. And she said, "Oh, you lucky thing, you've got your own respirator." And lo and behold, on Monday morning, there was a story on the BBC saying, yes, Mercedes-AMG are going to repurpose CPAP machines as respirators. And the advantage being that the patient doesn't need to be sedated in order to use them, because there's nothing that goes down your throat. It's just a mask over your face.
Yeah, that makes a lot more sense than Dyson producing, who mainly are known for Hoovers, which in my view suck things up. They've been asked to make something that blows air in completely the wrong way. But it is very interesting too how amazingly quickly we come up with inventive ideas for sort of solving some of the. I do love all that. I mean, the kind of energy that's going into, and this is where we recognise the great contributions of engineers and people like that.
You got talking about being a resource and so on. There's a brilliant story you got about Philip Connolly, Jeff.
Yeah, now Philip Connolly is quite well known in disabled circles. He's a disability rights activist. He's a bit of a maverick. I would call him a disruptor. I actually had the privilege of being at school with Philip in the late 1970s. And we were all at this horrible institutionalized boarding school. Philip came in just for the sixth form. And whereas all of us had been beaten down by all these ridiculous rules and regulations, Philip just said, hang on a minute, but why are we being asked to do this? That makes no sense. So he questions everything. Anyway, he sent me a presentation that he's prepared because he wants disabled people to emerge as problem solvers and creators rather than a problem to be solved. He says we should avoid being a victim, we should avoid victimhood, and we should avoid avoiding. In other words, he's saying, we should form networks. we should volunteer. We don't all have to go and volunteer in hospitals. Some volunteering work can be done from your own home using your computer and your phone. And he says it's really essential that disabled people emerge from this as people who can do rather than have things done to them. He says, health permitting, do some volunteering. He's even got some open source DIY ventilator designs. And he's saying, well, why can't disabled people either make them, sponsor them, or promote them? He's also looking at UV light as a form of killing COVID-19 on surfaces. And he finishes his presentation by saying, what we need to do is create a post-virus society in which social care is much more readily available, highly valued, and in which the role of disabled people is strengthened.
I liked this. I liked it because, as you say, it's different thinking. It's disability rights, but it's in a different way. And the idea that we're no longer passive victims, it's not all about just saving benefits. It's about let's get involved. Let's show what we can do as well. And there's some really ingenious thinking. It does take a swerve into the social care, but is he linking the fact that if we are doing whatever we're doing in the voluntary capacity, that means social care becomes easier? Or am I?
I think one thing I'd echo Jeff's comments about Philip. I worked with Philip when I was at DRUK. He was the policy officer there, and he's got a very different take on a lot of things. But one of the things he's doing here, which really is important, I think, is to put disabled people in the expertise position. We live our lives in isolated ways, many of us. I don't mean us three necessarily, but we know lots of disabled people who are isolated for the very reason that their impairment is so severe or whatever. We get used to dealing with this stuff. And I think Philip's hypothesis, which is worth pursuing, is that we should be called on to give advice about how people manage this. People with mental health conditions have a lot to say about how you manage that. And we should be getting them out here to talk to us rather than listening to doctors all the time.
John Ronson, the author and commentator, he said, if you have anxiety, this is your best time because you've been preparing for Armageddon all your life. Suddenly you can relax because it's arrived. Whereas those of us who say nothing will ever happen, I thought this was really interesting. That it deserves a longer conversation, really, doesn't it?
Absolutely does.
Kind of getting near our deadline, but how do you want to finish our time with you?
I want to point you to a couple more things, if I may. Very quickly, Social Care Inclusion London is trying to do a nationwide monitoring of social care through the crisis to see how people are coping. So I'll give you the link for that to put in the show notes. And lastly, I just want to tell you, I contributed to quite a long thread on Twitter. The questioner originally asked, how do we want society to be after the virus? Now, I responded by saying, I'd like to see an adequately funded NHS staffed by people who are valued and remunerated properly for the hard work that they do. And I was just wondering, from your point of view, you guys, what's your big ask for after the virus?
I had a bit more time. I got 4 quick points, and then maybe do jump in. Phil, obviously I agree with yours, Jeff. I'm really interested in this universal basic income idea. I think there's something really interesting. The other bit I love, living in London, the community groups that have popped up and this sort of sense of unity, not too much. I don't want people popping around every 10 minutes, but the fact that I know we're all around and supporting each other. I think the other group I'm seeing is the HGV drivers, the cleaners, the people who are doing loads of stuff and we're not really acknowledging them. Them, for me, are equal to NHS. And the last thing, I think everyone must be given a stand to rest their device on to learn how to do video calls. The amount of video calls I've done with people who rest it on their knees or they're holding it and they're wobbling about. So just get a stand, put it down. That would be great.
I've got a couple of things to add. The first is that the Research Institute for Disabled Consumers have just put out a survey asking disabled people, it's going to 1,600 of our panel members, asking them how they're dealing with this current crisis. And people can find that. We'll put that in the show notes. I'd certainly echo what you've both said, and I love the idea of giving people stands, because I'm fed up with looking at lampshades. I've seen more lampshades over the last few months. I think the one thing for me has been the recognition of who is most needed by us in these situations. And all the flim flam that goes around in society, it's suddenly laid bare when you realise you're relying on a 22-year-old nurse. We've always known that, but it's been brought into sharp relief. And I mentioned engineers. I'm a big fan of people that make stuff and solve problems by creating devices, because that's what I use all the time, as we all do. So, yeah. Okay, Jeff. Well, thank you so much, as always. I'm sure we're going to get you back. In fact, I know we're going to get you back. But for the time being, anyway, Jeff, thank you so much. That's been really useful.
Okay, have a good week, guys. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate it. A delight to have a fabulous person on the show who both Phil and I admire and love to bits, Baroness Jane Campbell. We're going to call you Jane, if that's okay.
Please do.
How are you getting on? How long have you been in self-isolation, and how is it?
Well, this will be day 13 for me, and do you know, I'm okay because I'm quite used to being at home for periods of time due to having chest infections every year, and that basically grounds me for 6 weeks. So I think for the next 6 weeks I'll be fine. After that, I will be running out that door screaming because I'm a very social person and I miss the contact. I think that's the biggest thing.
Didn't you post recently a picture of you trying to escape up your driveway? And I think your support worker, Courtney, had to rail you back in. Is that true?
Well, it was a very sunny day and I just got a little bit of cabin fever. But unfortunately, my PAs are incredibly good at switching me off immediately and dragging me back into the house under Roger's orders, really. I mean, we talk about state rule. I've got Roger rule in this house, and he won't let me out.
That, kids, you can find on TikTok, and it's to the music by Queen of I Want to Break Free, I believe, which is beautifully done.
Perhaps more seriously then, Jane, you mentioned your situation, chest infections and all those kinds of things, the way you have to be so careful about not catching things. How are you? I mean, what kind of things are coming in your direction from people you know that have either similar conditions to yourself or those that are very vulnerable, that dreadful word vulnerable?
Yeah, that awful word vulnerable. I mean, we're not vulnerable people, but we are in a very vulnerable situation. And I think those two are very separate. So we have to be very, very careful at the moment, especially people with any type of respiratory disability. So, as you know, I'm connected with the big SMA community. That's spinal muscular atrophy. For those who do not know, that's my little group. That's my species of people. And we are really, really worried because, of course, the one thing with the coronavirus is that you will get, well, you're very likely to get respiratory difficulties. And those of us who find it quite difficult to breathe anyway, this is our biggest fear, I think. Pneumonia was always my biggest fear. Now, of course, it's corona. So the one thing that we're all incredibly concerned about is the lack of personal protective equipment for both to keep us safe and, of course, our PAs safe. Unfortunately, we cannot self-isolate. You know, we cannot live alone. We are all linked to another human being who cares for us, or gives us personal care. So I have to have people coming in. But if you think about it, I have 5 PAs. They all live with families. Some of their husbands work, so there are risks in the chain. If I had PPE, I would feel a lot safer. I could give them masks, aprons, gloves to wear when they came to work, which would cut the risk down of bringing anything into the house. But unfortunately, that's not the case. So I've been urging the government to think about the 75,000 of us who employ PAs to to get it to us as soon as possible. But at the moment, we are not a priority.
You really bring it home in terms of being susceptible to this and that impact. Last week we talked about you actually in the letter. The concern last week was, what if you had a support worker? Would they still be able to travel? Will they still be able to come and visit? Are they an essential worker? Are we over that hump? Is that okay?
No, we're only just facing it. So for instance, one of my friends who has 6 support workers, within 24 hours, he lost 5 of them, and he does not have any backup from family. So he had one support worker who, out of the goodness of their heart, said, okay, I will stay with you. So this guy stayed and worked 24/7 for 2 weeks until his other support workers could return to work. I have heard of stories of people losing support workers and PAs because they are just too scared. So we are in a very, very vulnerable situation at the moment. And over the next few weeks, as it begins to spike, will be the real litmus test of how we cope and what kind of contingencies there are. And at the moment, I worry deeply because we hear about the fact that the local authorities do not have the staff, the agency staff, to just bring into your home. Immediately somebody does not turn up. So what does that mean? Where are we going to go? So I'm urging all disabled people to really think through what would happen if in this situation, what kind of contingency plans they should be thinking of making. I mean, don't forget, disabled people are the best problem solvers in the world. So we really have to look to ourselves a lot because we cannot rely on the local authority just to step in. And we also hear about these 500,000 volunteers that are gearing up to, come into our homes. Well, that's all well and good, and I'm pleased they're doing it, and that will help. But it doesn't solve the problem for people like me because it takes me at least 2 weeks to train up a PA so that they can ventilate me properly, understand all my feeding equipment. It's quite a technical job. So, yeah, we're on a bit of a tightrope, to be honest, at the moment.
And that whole network thing, so you've got to pull in your network of people, but not everyone's got them. That's the point, isn't it? That's really
Absolutely. And that is where we need to help these individuals to look to what they're going to do. I mean, I spend most of my time on the phone giving telephone support to PA users who do not have that kind of network.
So, given the story you just told about the person that lost 4 or 5 support workers in one go,
Yeah, 24
what would
hours.
happen? What would happen if they had no support at all?
Probably I'd have to send Roger, my husband, round to help him. Luckily, he doesn't live too far away.
They wouldn't admit to hospital or to some kind of residential care, or
Well, if there's a residential care bed, but a lot of residential care homes are not taking people in at the moment because they may be a risk to the people living in the care home. There is no way that I would go into a hospital at this time. I would rather get somebody off the streets to come into my house and help me than go into a hospital. It's the most dangerous place for people in my situation. I'm not talking about everybody. Place to go. And I don't know if you've seen the recent NICE guidance, but whether we've been taken into hospital is another question, because I think we all know that the more severely impaired, the more risky you are, the less likely you are to get the kind of intensive care beds. So, A, don't go to hospital if you're well. B, if you're very, very ill, then try to get into hospital, but I'm not sure that you would. I mean, my consultant has already told me you are best placed at home, Jane. you do not want to come in.
Before you came on, we were speaking with Jeff Adams Spink about this was particularly the US, but where if you have a disability, you may be lower down the priority list of getting support and care, and how terrifying that may well be, even more than ever.
Yeah, I mean, they talk about clinical benefits. And I mean, these decisions are made every day in the NHS. I think it's going to be even more so the case now. We know that it's happened in Italy and in Spain. I mean, we've got some pretty nasty horror stories about finding older people in residential care homes dead because everyone was left the residential care home. I mean, we've got a lot to be worried about. But, as I say, disabled people, we're very good in times of crisis. We come together, we support each other. I think it's a very important time for us to keep in touch with each other, to make sure that you link into the employers, PA employers groups on Facebook. Keep talking, but for God's sake, keep organising your care, because that has got to be your number one priority.
You should put a link up. You mentioned that Facebook group. We'll put a link up in our show notes.
Please join us.
Honest,
We're very good. We're giving each other a lot of support.
We're getting towards the end of our time, Jane. What?
No, it's not that time.
I've got 3 questions.
Well, I'm sorry. Look, I've got to be strict with you both. All right. Final question, Mr. Minty.
Well, I'm going to say 1 and 2. The one that you're not going to answer, Jane, and this sounds like a real chat show. I know you've been doing some voluntary work because you're a good egg. You told me you were making phone calls to elderly women who are on their own, and you do 3 a day of 20 minutes, which I love. And I want to make the documentary of when you all meet after, because they don't know who you are, and I love that. Now, quick one, Crip Camp on Netflix.
It is brilliant. Please watch Crip Camp. It's about when a group of disabled people came together in America and began to talk about their situation, began to realise that they weren't the problem, but society was. At that camp, something happened, but it lit the bonfire of the disability movement in America. We had similar situations here. Watch it, it's heartwarming, it's joyous, it's reaffirming. And again, it tells me how very strong we are. And although this is the most difficult time that we as disabled people might have to face in our entire lifetime, if we do it together, if we connect with one another, we will pull through, and we will talk about this at a time when we found out just how resilient and how good at problem solving that we really are. So please watch it. Remember we're great. Remember that we're solid. And together we're strong. Divided we're weak. So watch it. Think about us. And just remember we're going to conquer this.
Delighted to have the international comedian, one-time abnormally funny person. She's pulling faces at me, which you can't see, listener. It's Tanya Lee Davis. Hey, Tanya Lee.
Hello, everyone.
How are you getting on with? You were so full of energy, so full of life. How are you getting on with this isolation, staying at home thing?
I'm so alone. No, I'm losing my mind. It's weird. I'm a very social person, and it's so nice that we have the internet. Isn't it great? We have the internet, people. We can communicate with each other because it's scary out there. Whoa, the apocalypse.
Have you been out?
Well, yeah, actually, we have a Tesco Metro across the way, and it was so bizarre because they've now roped it off. They put tape every 6 feet. So you're only allowed one person per square in the Tesco. So it's just like Tetris going through the grocery store now, and you can only move when somebody else moves out of their square now. It's so bizarre. And as a little person, you're not allowed to go anywhere near the person now to give them your food. So there's a barrier. So I'm having to throw shit across to the it makes for interesting.
Do you
Yeah.
think we could adapt it? I mean, mind you, it would mean we'd touch perhaps, but you remember the game Twister? Maybe we should do that outside Tesco's where everybody has their
Ooh.
square, but they can put a foot in someone else. What about that? That would be fun.
I think we did that last night just here to kill some time last night in the bedroom.
Oh hell! I had a problem. I went to the supermarket. I was on my own. I can't reach things. So how do you? Someone had to pass me something, breaking all the rules. What did you do? What do you do?
Oh, I yell at Kevin.
He's
I
your
yell at
partner.
him. Yeah, I do. That's why. Yeah, he's carrying the thing now.
Hanging out with people like you and Steve Day, who we had on last week, you live for standing up in front of people and making them laugh. It is like food and love and everything to you. How are you managing?
Well, it's very difficult because comedians are actually, in general, quite depressive people, but we crave that endorphin release when we perform, or when performing creates an endorphin release, and we get that 3 to 5 times a week. Well, now we're not getting it. So for me personally, this is why I'm trying to do my little videos, just to give me a purpose. I'm not really trying to be super funny in them, because right now it's difficult for everybody, but it's my way of reaching out and just saying, hey, listen, hi, we're all going through some crazy stuff right now. Here's me dancing and shaking my booty to Baby Got Back. If it entertains you, if it inspires you, great. Let's just, we're in this together. So that's been
What's
sort of my attitude.
what's that song by the Village People that you're very good at?
The YMCA, lowercase. Yes,
I'll
I'm
feed
very
you.
good at that. Yeah, thank you very much. Give it on to me. Yeah, the video's online if you want to see it. Every day I'm doing a dance video.
What about family back in the US and Canada?
Well, both my parents are 75, so they're definitely in the high risk category. My dad and my stepmom are in America, in Florida, which has quite a few cases. But last I heard, there's none in their county, and they've been isolating, and they have property. My mom is up in Canada, and she's also isolating. She's upset that all her bridge games have been canceled and stuff. So yeah, I mean, I think everybody is doing the responsible thing.
And you live in Norwich, which is fine because presumably it's like 20 meters between everybody anyway, isn't it?
Right. Yes, exactly. Yeah, and people smile now when you do go outside, and the few people that you see, people are a lot more friendlier now. I'm noticing, like, it's this thing of like, oh, we're in this together, and you're going out there for your 1 hour of exercise, or this is your one jaunt out a day, and we're like, you know, acknowledgement from afar now.
Did you come out and clap the NHS? Did your whole street turn out?
I live in a flat, so I actually didn't hear anything. I believe it was also I was on Skype with my grandkids while it was happening, so I got distracted. I'm assuming because we have one of the biggest hospitals in the city, not too far from me, and they're so I'm assuming.
I heard that you actually went out and took it as your applause for your endorphin hit. You pretended you just finished a gig.
I heard that from many comedians, that they stood up and were like, thank you.
Yeah.
I'll do that next time.
Yeah.
No, that's rough.
So when are you going to be back performing? I spoke to someone who's an actor, and they said this could be next year. The fear being you might open up the theatres and the clubs, but will people be ready to go and sit next to strangers, and they're going to be fearful? So it might be the audience. I mean, do you have any idea of this?
Well, I know the last gig I did was almost 3 weeks ago now, and they were already practicing social distancing, which I think might come into play a little bit more. But they had enough room to do this. They took the audience that they would normally put in a smaller room, and they decided to put them in a bigger room, and they just spaced everybody out more, and it made everybody more comfortable. As a comedian, you're used to people being on top of you, but we also spit a lot when we talk as comedians, and we're all kind of like, I was like, can you wipe the microphone down? And we're sanitizing it in between comedians, and I'm like, this is so bizarre. But I think that when we're kind of given the okay, I think it's going to be full on. People are going to go mental with trying to get out and socialize and get back to the pubs. And I think as far as comedy, that I think it's going to be booming. It just might take another 6 months.
Yeah.
That's the thing. You know, I myself am basically, I have no gigs till August. It doesn't matter whether this turns around or not. Everything is canceled until August.
Tanya
And
Lee,
so,
are you
you
going
know,
to use the time to develop new material? I mean, is this a good opportunity to, you know, sit down and think about? I mean, obviously there'll be some huge amounts of COVID-19 jokes, I'm guessing, when the store, you know, the Comedy Store opens. But I mean, is this an opportunity to develop some new material, do you think?
well, yes, it should be. Absolutely should be an opportunity. That's the whole thing. Should be an opportunity. I should be writing the book I've always wanted to do. I should be. Our apartment should be spotless. No, I am lucky if I do my small talk video and I do my dance video. And yesterday I did neither because I just was like, I'm having a complete veg out day, and I just binge watched, and surprisingly in a really good mood today. So we really didn't watch the news at all yesterday, and I'm surprisingly in a really good mood. Plus I had 2 very important things to do today. So,
I
you
spoke
know,
to Steve Best, our mutual friend who's a comedian, yesterday, and he said, I'll be honest with you, it's not much different, this, because comedians flop about most of the day anyway, and then we go out in the evening. That's the bit that's missing. Your dance
Mhm.
videos, are you still doing the pole dancing?
if I could get somebody in here to put a pole up now, but unfortunately there's no one here to install one. I don't have a stripper pole, so I've decided to use the cat scratch post. Thanks, Simon.
What does the cat think about that?
Oh, jealous. You can have some great moves, though. Taking over the litter box, too. That way you don't need toilet paper.
Well, I hope we get to see you before August. It's too blooming long, isn't it? It's terrifying, but I'm glad you're doing all right, and I hope you and Kevin stay well and stay clear of everything.
Thank you. And you guys as well. Thanks. It's nice to see your faces. Human contact or visual contact's good.
Thank you, Tanya Lee.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. Have a great day.
Take care.
Yeah.
That is it for the Phil and Simon Show number 42. We really hope you've enjoyed it. It's been great to have the guests as ever. I'm lucky I can see Phil, and I don't know about you, Phil, but what's going on with the haircut situation?
Well, this is worrying, isn't it? Because I haven't had a haircut now for about a month. I would normally be going about this time. So I'm going to revert, I suspect, to the days when I didn't have much money and my wife cut my hair.
Yeah.
I did end up at one time going to a very posh hairdressing salon in Chelsea, paying extraordinary sums of money. And then I couldn't afford that. And Sue cut my hair. And then after years of doing it, I always remember this, I went back to a barber shop to get my hair cut. And he looked at me and he said, who the hell's been cutting your hair? So I suspect I'm going to have to do that again. Yeah. But what about you? I mean, yours is looking a bit on the long. You know, you're getting a bit long there, Simon.
Tanya Lee mentioned that comedians are going to get busy, hairdressers are going to get busy. I have clippers, and the day before lockdown, I happened to have seen my family, and I got my sisters to do the back. I can do the sides, but I can't reach the back. It's starting to get a bit. I'm desperate. I really want to shave it all off, though. What do you think? No, I love the idea of shaving it all off just for this 2 months.
Oh, I'd have trouble looking at you.
Okay, we struck a nerve here, haven't we? Okay, we should finish that show. Phil and I will.
No, I just don't think it's. Being absolutely honest with you, it's a look I've never liked.
Right, the skinhead.
And I think it's to do with the skinheads. I grew up. I was young when all that was happening, and it frightened the life out of me. You join the National Front, you start walking around with a bald head.
Okay. Well,
please don't do it. Do you want me to send you something to calm you down?
No, but I'm going to send you my therapist to chill you out about this. Thank you so much for listening, everybody. We will be back next week, all things prevailing. And if you want to contact us, we love that. We're on Facebook, we're on LinkedIn, and we're on Twitter, of course.
And our email address, if you want to drop us a line, is the Phil and Simon Show @gmail.com. And I would just say that I had a listener who said to me she thought the last show was brilliant because, particularly the Jeff bit, because he put a context around things that she hadn't thought about before. So if you feel that we've said something that really resonates with you, please do drop us a line.
And if you're worried that you're going to keep missing our show, I'm sure you're not that worried, but we can put you on our mailing list as well. That's not a problem. Thank you so much. Until next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.